This video is on how to solve angle sums non-special. Number 1, angle beta is in quadrant 4. Angle theta is in quadrant 1. Cosine of theta is equal to 3 over 5 and sine of beta is equal to negative 12 over 13. Find the exact simplified value of cosine theta plus beta. Before we start this problem, you need to know the equation in the rap song whenever dealing with cosine and sine. When trying to find cosine of a value or sine of a value, you have to know the rap song. In this case, when dealing with cosine, the rap song is cosine, cosine, sine, sine. However, what makes the cosine rap song special is whatever sign is used in the original equation, you have to change to the opposite in the rap song. Now that we know the rap song, we can continue on with the problem. So to find the exact simplified value of cosine theta plus beta, we must write out the rap song. Now we fill in the thetas and the betas. Now that that step is finished, we refer back to the original statement where we find what cosine of theta and sine of beta are equal to. Since we know cosine of theta is 3/5, we can fill in cosine of theta as 3/5. The same goes for sine of beta. Sine of beta is equal to negative 12/13. What the problem doesn't give you is the values of cosine of beta and sine of theta. However, we can find those values. To find the unknown values, we must draw a triangle and put theta and beta in the corner of each. The next step is to fill in what we know. We know cosine of theta is 3/5. Cosine in SOHCAHTOA is adjacent over hypotenuse. So we know that the adjacent value is 3 and the hypotenuse value is 5. Now we have to find the missing side of the triangle. In order to do that, we have to do a squared plus b squared equals c squared. A squared plus 3 squared is equal to 5 squared. Now, we know 5 squared is 25 and 3 squared is 9. And you have to subtract the 2. 25 minus 9 is 16. So in that case, we know that a squared is equal to 16. To find a, you have to square root the a squared and square root the 16, making this value 4. Now that we were able to find all 3 values of the triangle, we can now find sine of theta. Sine of theta is opposite 4 over hypotenuse 5. Multiply those two together. The last value that we need to find is cosine of beta. We know that sine of beta is negative 12/13. Sine is opposite over hypotenuse. So 12 opposite and 13 hypotenuse. We do the same a squared plus b squared method to find the value of this side of the triangle. 12 squared plus b squared is equal to 13 squared. 13 squared is 169, and 12 squared is 144. When we subtract the 2, we get 25. B squared is equal to 25. To find B, you square root B squared and 25, leaving 5 as this side of the triangle. Now that we've found this side of the triangle, we can fill in what cosine of beta is equal to. Cosine of beta is adjacent over hypotenuse, so 5 over 13, and multiply those two together. One final step before you calculate the answers to these multiplication problems is to make sure that the signs for both of the two numbers that you found are either positive or negative. To do that, you look at where the angles are located on the unit circle. If we look at a graph, angle beta is in quadrant 4. If you look at cosine of beta, which is this value right here on the x-axis, all of these numbers are positive. In that case, you know that cosine of beta is positive. For angle theta, it is located in quadrant 1, which is right here. Now we can solve the equation. 3/5 times 5/13. First, multiply the numerators, 15, and the denominators, 65. Do the same for the next two. 4 times negative 12 is negative 48 over 65. The next step is to add the fractions together because minus a negative always equals a positive. 15 plus 48 is 63, and keep the denominators the same. 63/65 is your final exact simplified value of cosine theta plus beta. Question number 2. Angle beta is in quadrant 3. Angle theta is in quadrant 1. Cosine of theta is equal to 5/7, and sine of beta is equal to negative 1/5. Find the exact simplified value of sine theta plus beta. Now we are working with sine, which means you use a different rap song. The rap song for sine is sine, cosine, cosine, sine. Sine, unlike cosine, you can just use the same value that is given in the original problem. So you just add them together and fill in the thetas and the betas, alternating each one. In the problem, they give you the value of cosine of theta and sine of beta. So we can go ahead and fill in those values right now. Cosine of theta is 5/7, and sine of beta is negative 1/5. Next, we have to find the two values of sine of theta and cosine of beta. To do that, we have to draw the triangles and put theta and beta in each corner. To find sine of theta, we have to plug in what cosine of theta was. Cosine of theta was 5/7. Going back to a squared plus b squared is equal to c squared, in order to find this side, we must do a squared plus 5 squared is equal to 7 squared. This is 49, 25, and a squared. 49 minus 25 is 24. A squared is equal to 24. However, 24 is not a perfect square, so we at least have to simplify the value of the square root of 24, because that is what a is equal to. To simplify the square root of 24, you can make a tree branch. This tree is called a prime factorization tree. And basically you just take all the numbers that make up 24 and manipulate them until there are only prime numbers left. A 3, a 2, a 2, and a 2 is what is going to be underneath that square root bar, and you can take out any of the numbers that square root. So a is equal to 2 times the square root of 6, because we were able to pull out the 2, and what's left is a 3 and a 2, which makes 6. So 2 times the square root of 6 is the simplified version of the square root of 24. Now that we found those sides of the triangle, we can fill in what the sine of theta is equal to. The sine of theta is opposite over hypotenuse. 2 times the square root of 6 over 7. The next step is to find the values of the triangle on beta. We know that sine of beta is equal to negative 1/5. Sine is opposite over hypotenuse. To find cosine of beta, we must find this side. Using a squared plus b squared is equal to c squared. 1 squared plus b squared is equal to 5 squared. What's left is 25 minus 1, which is 24. B squared is equal to 24. If you notice here, we had the same answer in the last problem that we did. So we know that the simplified version of the square root of 24 is 2 times the square root of 6. Now we can fill in what cosine of beta is equal to. Adjacent, which is 2 times the square root of 6, over hypotenuse, 5. Finally, before we multiply those values together, we must check to see what the signs on these two values are. We'll draw the graph. We know that angle beta is in quadrant 3. Quadrant 3 is located right here. The cosine on this value is negative. So we know that the cosine of beta is negative, and we have to make sure that we put that in there or else we won't get the right answer. For angle theta, we're in quadrant 1. The sine of theta is located right here, and all of these values are positive, so the sine of theta is positive. Next, we multiply. 2 times the square root of 6 times negative 2 times the square root of 6 is the same thing as saying negative 4 times 6, because the square root of 6 times the square root of 6 is just 6. So 4 times 6 is 24, and we can't forget the negative. 7 times 5 is 35. 5 times negative 1 is negative 5, and 7 times 5 is 35. Negative 24 minus 5 is negative 29 over 35, and that is the final answer.
I will be the answer.